Hello, everyone. I am Jessica Koch, your host of Profound Professionals. We have been running this interview series for almost 6 years now. Can you believe that? Oh my gosh, 6 years. And we have been bringing you industry experts from all over the world who think outside of the box and who have amazing resources and information to share with you. And I have not disappointed you today. Our guest is just yet another phenomenal, amazing, interesting person who is going to share all the things with us. Tara Haislip is a spiritual career mentor, an international best-selling author, and the CEO of Grounded 111. I don't know what that is either, but we're about to find out. So this should be fun and interesting. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, this is always so fun. I mean, I really think that when we can take the time and share our expertise and our knowledge with the world and help them improve their lives or grow their business, then that is a good use of our time and space here in all of the virtual platform worlds that we're streaming on at the moment at once. So tell me how you came to be a spiritual career mentor. Like, it's not one of those things when you're in kindergarten, you say, okay, when I grow up, I'm going to be a firefighter, I'm going to be a teacher. I think I'm going to be a spiritual career mentor. That's the thing I'm going to do. So how did you come upon that in your journey?
Yeah, so it really all started. I was the typical kid who was like, I'm going to be a ballerina when I grow up. And I,
all the way.
yep, and I actually did pursue that. I was a professional dancer for up until I was 22, when I blew out my knee. And
That doesn't
I,
sound good.
No, I was at an audition in DC when it happened, and it was only my meniscus, but it was the loudest pop I've ever heard, and I even grossed out all the participants in the audition, and just tried to play it off like it wasn't me, and I did the whole 3-hour audition on a busted knee.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And how this transpired, how I got to this point, though, also ties into how I've become a spiritual career mentor. Growing up, I was very in tune as a kid to, kids are very intuitive until we hit a certain age, usually around 7, although 7 is a very magical year. And then once, you get past 7, it's like some of that magic kind of disappears through society and upbringing. But I grew up in a family that is, on my mother's side, Native American, and we're very tuned in. And as a kid, I can remember just having memories of like seeing things, or like my mom, we lived in a really old house, and I would get up and I was like 3. I don't remember doing this, but she will tell the story about how I would get up and be like, the little girl woke me up last night again. To learn that like we lived in a really old farmhouse after my parents were divorced, and there was a lot of energy and activity. And I later learned in life that there was a young girl that had died of pneumonia in that house back in the 1800s. And we're talking Western New York, like super cold. So she connected with me on that level, and I was just a young child. And my mom never, said that's not real. It didn't happen. Her sister is also very intuitive, and so she grew up with it herself. So she never really turned it off. Like she acknowledged what I was experiencing as a kid, and then I internalized it as I got older. And started to hide it more and more because, it was very woo-woo-ish, and many people didn't understand. They thought it was strange. So I internalized it until as a dancer, I went off to college and I completely disconnected from who I was. And I was working multiple jobs, going to school full-time, audition schedule, class schedule, work schedules. And I let people in when you're a dancer or any kind of artist, you're in high competition. And as a dancer, your medium is your body and your physicality. So when people would critique me, I let it in. I let their critiques really settle. And I was trying to be all things to all people instead of being all things to myself. And I wouldn't quit. I wouldn't hit the brakes. I wouldn't stop to reconnect. I didn't feel spiritually connected to myself or the world around me. I was just numb and going 100 miles an hour, which is why I ended up blowing out my knee, because my body was finally like, it's time to, if you're not going to do it and make the constant effort, your body's going to give out. And that's what happened. I finally took a step back and started to reassess my life and where I was going and who I was. Like, I didn't recognize the person in the mirror anymore. And I just made this jump to go into corporate America. From being a dancer, I was like, I really just had to step away from this completely, which is, if you know any dancers or artists, that's a hard decision to make.
Right.
Very hard. Your identity is all wrapped up in that.
Like you're giving up, right?
Yeah.
But it was time for something new, you know?
It really was. And it was scary, but I was just like, I'm going to go this route. I don't know why I'm going this route. I just am. And ended up going back to school and became a paralegal and started manifesting and like really reconnecting with who I was and reconnecting to my spirituality and my intuition. And it didn't happen overnight. So it's not like one of those things where I just started manifesting in my mind and everything happened and fell into place. No, there was a lot of internal work that needed to be done, a lot of shadow work that needed to be done, and recognizing old patterns in order to break those patterns. And, you know, those patterns show back up in your life because you're supposed to learn from them. And they will keep showing up until you learn from them. Mm-hmm. So it took months before I had a little bit of a breakthrough, which was my first job at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Philadelphia.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was my first office job after being a dancer all my life.
Good. It sounds pretty snazzy to me. Besides the title.
Yeah. So everything like just came together. I put all the energy out there and working on myself, and I did get frustrated and angry at times. And I thought, why am I doing this? I should just go back to my old ways. I mean, this isn't working either, you know, and I kept working through those emotions to be like, there's got to be something better on the other side. I didn't have this quote unquote breakdown in order to rebuild if there wasn't something better, or if I wasn't supposed to learn from this. And then I just kept going from there, and I kept building my career as a paralegal because it was supposed to be something that I wanted to, it was a holding place until I could find what I was passionate about, right? Because as a dancer, I was passionate about it. I lived for it day in, day out. It never felt like work to me. But I'm very competitive with myself. So I started really doing the corporate grind, trying to climb that ladder, you know, working the long hours, you know, the yes woman. I'll take those extra clients. I'll take this extra work. I'll do the extra hours to get ahead and climb. And I realized I was burning out. And every 2 years, I was looking for a different environment, a different office environment, to find that place that gave me everything that I was looking for: the financial security, the benefits, the balanced work hours, work-life balance. And I wasn't finding it. And I was looking for it still externally, right? So I'm still doing more of that inner work at the same time and trying to figure out where I fit in and what I resonated with, until I was 6 years in. And I was finally like, I was engaged and we were talking about starting a family, and he worked in Louisiana for 7 months out of the year. I had an hour commute. My day started at 4 a.m. if I wanted to exercise and take care of myself with the hour commute. Then I was working until, you know, 5:30 in the evening, hour commute home. If I didn't time it right, and those who are maybe in the DC, Northern Virginia area understand this, like it's the same down where I was working, which is Williamsburg. And that's a lot of tourists in the summertime. So if I didn't time my drive just right, it could be a 2-hour drive home. And I was like, okay.
Books.
Yeah. Yes. So I was like, I need to do something different. And I just don't feel like this is where I want to go anymore with my life. But I was like, I put all this work and energy into this. Like, why would I change? Why would I change? Why would I go in a different direction? And I had to, again, take a pause, take a step back and go, well, why did I really start down this path? What was the purpose of going this route in my career? And I had to remind myself that it was supposed to be a holding place, something that I enjoyed doing until I could find the thing that I was most passionate about. And when I had that realization, it was really hard to be like, okay, how do I hit the brakes and make that transition? I really was.
I feel like the first step is, how do you figure out what are you most passionate about? Like,
Yeah,
before you're going to make the breaks and make a transition, you got to know where the heck you're going to get
exactly.
direction. So how did you figure that part out?
That was oddly enough easy, although I thought I was crazy. Because I'm like, what am I doing? I'm just going to look like I'm that typical artist who can't stick to anything. But what it was is I was really passionate about coaching and mentoring and in the health and wellness space. So I decided to become a health coach. And because during that whole time, I'm not only healing my internal emotional wellness and getting grounded in who I am, but I was also working on my physical health, right? As a dancer, I was burning somewhere around 4,000 calories a day between being in the studio, walking, riding a bike around the city. And I wasn't consuming enough calories. I was barely consuming what you need for your basal metabolic rate. And that's dangerous. That really screws up your metabolism. And that's exactly what I did. So when I went into office life, which is very sedentary, I started gaining weight like crazy. And I couldn't understand why. And then I'm trying to lose it. And that's why I'm getting up at 4 a.m. because I'm trying to work out and be that typical athlete that's very dedicated to my regiment. And it just wasn't working. And I was learning more about like food and nutrition and how to nourish myself physically as well as spiritually and mentally. And that's when I made the decision to get my health and wellness coaching certification. So I would wake up early in the morning and I would study, and then I'd go to work as a paralegal until I got my certification. And then I kind of hit this, I equate it to, how when you eat something that you really are craving and you love it and you eat so much of it that you actually make yourself sick from it. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I was feeling like when it came to my job anymore. And I said this to my fiance, now husband, and I was like, this isn't going to work. I can't stomach this anymore. And I found a job locally and I left my paralegal career. I mean, I just jumped. I left. I was like, I'm going to start my own business and I'm going to get another job that's kind of like, nothing really strenuous, because as a paralegal, I had a lot of responsibilities. My caseload was high. My workload was high. So that's what I did. And I had no idea what I was doing. I'll be completely honest. I just said, like, I'm going to be a health coach. This is what I'm going to do. I'll figure it out as I go. Like, things will present themselves to me, but I was still doing a lot of that inner work and having to trust the process. Mm-hmm. I'm a type A personality, so I have a tendency to get in my head and try to control the outcome and set expectations. And it took me from 2017 until now to really let that go and be okay with the flow of things. And that's one thing that I really hone in on when I'm working with clients is helping them find that space to let go of the control, especially for my type A'ers, and go with the flow of the energy for each day, like taking it day by day. And that's what was the biggest thing that helped me transition, was to not hang on to expectations, go with the energy, go with the flow, and let things unfold as they're supposed to.
So you've been doing this for about 6 years now.
Yes.
So if a person comes to you, it's typically because they are not happy with the direction of what they're doing, specifically in their work. Is that correct?
Correct. In most cases.
Started as a health coach, but you kind of transitioned to this career space.
Yes. I moved into the career space because as a health coach, I kept aligning with career women. And that's one of the things that they were working on. They were trying to work on their physical health in hopes that it would help them be at peace with what they weren't getting from their careers. They were struggling with a work-life imbalance. They weren't able to put the time and energy into their own health, like getting enough sleep, eating properly, not enough time to show up for their family the way that they wanted to, or even just for themselves the way that they wanted to. So they were struggling to find that balance and that peace. And that's when I said, okay, I think I need to really look at shifting what I'm offering to clients and who I'm connecting with, and change my marketing and change everything that I had already designed. And once I did that, I really started connecting with more of these women. And yes, they're having a hard time trying to find that balance. They're not happy with their career path. They're not happy with the growth. They want to transition. And in cases of people who are entrepreneurs, same thing. Like, they built their business a certain way, and then they're like, it's not aligning anymore. What do I do? Do I make this shift? How do I make this shift? Where should I go? How should I do this? And it's very interesting how it's similar for those who are corporate career and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I've had that. I've experienced a lot of that as I've seen. So I guess we're almost at 7 years now, and how we started and what I did when we started the company has changed, and we're going through some other changes. I think it's constantly dynamic. I think you have to shift to what is needed out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I love, of course, with my 7 children. I love, kids movies. I'm always grabbing that one little inspirational statement that, wow, that was in a kids movie. Can you believe it? There's a movie, and Robin Williams was in it, and I just loved him. So it makes me a little nostalgic and sad to think about that. But it's robots. The movie is robots. And the one thing that the guy said all the time is see a need, fill a need, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you constantly have to be paying attention to the market, to the needs of your customers, to to how things are changing with technology, to stay on track with what's needed. So now if someone comes with you and they're looking for this like work-life balance, or or just things don't feel right or aligned anymore, whether they're a solopreneur or in a career, when they come to you, what's their experience? Are you still focusing on their health with them? Or are you take us through kind of what your client would experience?
Yeah, so it depends on what it is that they're looking for. And I always let my clients or prospective clients drive the conversation. I'm here to listen and hold space, which is, there are a lot of coaches out there, and we've been taught this. So I'm not bashing anybody, because I started out this way too, where we feel like you're coming to me, I need to give you advice. I need to tell you what it is that you need. But really, your clients and prospective clients know what it is that they need. It's holding space for them to find that strength, to trust themselves, and share what it is that they're looking for, and then empower them to really step into what that feels like and looks like. So when a client comes to me, or a prospective client comes to me, if they work with me one-on-one, I really take direction from them as to what they want to focus on. And in some cases, it does, during sessions, oscillate between their individual wellness, like trying to balance. One of my clients, we talked about this during our sessions. She was trying to balance the energy in her household, holding space for herself with teenagers in the house, trying to keep her own sanity, trying to hold her own
heart through a meat blender. That's what I say.
Yeah, I've got a ways to go before I'm there, but I just remember growing up and what we did, and I'm like, oh, and just trying to find that energetic space for themselves. And it came down to food. Like, the kids would never participate in dinner time. She was struggling to figure out, like, what do I fix for them? We don't eat the same thing. How do I balance this out and not be making like 5 meals on top of everything that I'm trying to do for my business? How do I balance all of this? So yes, we do have those conversations if they come up. And it always ties into a balance, like that work-life balance. What's going on inside your household? And it will come up in the group coaching that I have as well. So I have a program that I've designed that's an 8-week deep dive, where we go into, understanding what it is that you're trying to create or manifest as in your career or in your business, understanding why it keeps coming up for you, and then how to put an action plan together is what it is, but take it step by step. Like, what do you need day to day to get you there? And yes, the health and wellness part comes into it as well, because you have to be able to take care of yourself in order to show up in the best way possible for not just you, but if you take care of you first, then you'll show up for your business or your job or your community and your family in a more centered, grounded way. So it does tie in. It's not the major focal point unless it needs to be. It's kind of it may feel like a wishy-washy answer, but I mean, that's what it's kind of like to work with me, is I listen to your energy and what you need, instead of me sitting there going, well, I think you could benefit from this, and let's try this and let's try that. It's motivational interviewing, which if there are any coaches listening, they're like, yes, exactly. Like, empowering your client to sit with what they need and ask the questions like, how do I do this? What is it that I want? And sometimes asking those questions can be scary because you're bringing into light maybe something that you don't want to admit yet, because of what it means, like all the changes that it may mean in the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, I mean, those questions can be tough. And, and some of it is, why am I just not doing it? Because, it's so funny. I've recently made some changes, and I always had excuses before for why I wasn't getting to bed before 10 o'clock so that I could be well rested and have the hours I needed. I always had some sort of excuse, and now I just schedule everything so that that's non-negotiable, and I am in bed at a decent time and I'm resting more, So I think when we really want to do things, we have to, if we're not doing something like that, we need to ask ourselves, well, why, and what's really going on here? Because truthfully, we're all given the same amount of time, and we all can do any of the things that we want to do. We just have to choose what those things are, and I have a lot of children and a lot of demands on me, and I run a company and a business, and I have clients, and I have a team that I manage and run. We have almost 70 virtual assistants globally that help our clients, in addition to other independent contractors we hire to do things, as well as employees that we're adding to the company. So, there's a lot of balls in the air all the time, but you just can't make excuses for the things that are absolutely necessary. So what is a tip that you would give someone if they're feeling these aches and pains that they could potentially do today that would help their life?
Yeah. So what I would say is, if you are feeling these aches and pains, that something is just coming up for you on repeat about what you desire most or wish you would or could do with your career in relation to your home life and that work-life balance experience, is to step back, find some space for yourself. It can be 30 minutes to a minute. Take a few deep breaths. And even if you have like a piece of paper sitting around you, don't have to have a journal, doesn't have to be special. Write it down what you want, even if it's like one or two words or just like keywords that pop into your mind. For example, what do you want? Freedom, time freedom, balanced schedule, more time for yourself, better income, different work environment. Like those little phrases, write them down and put them in your pocket, and take 30 seconds to breathe and just release like the pains that you're feeling with each exhale. And with each inhale, breathe in what that experience would feel like if you had the thing that you want. So for example, if you are like, I just want more time freedom, have control over my own schedule, breathe in what that would feel like: peaceful, exciting, any of those positive keywords. Breathe that in and exhale how it feels now, like what you're experiencing now. Exhaustion, exhale that exhaustion, exhale the frustration. And you can do this every day as you need to kind of rebalance that mindset.
That's good. I love that. So before we move on to one of my other favorite parts of the show, is there anything that we didn't cover about yourself, Tara, or your business that you'd like to share?
Yeah, sure. I would love to share how people can connect with me. I'm all about like an easy way to connect. I have a few ways. So I have a free download that, like what I just gave as an exercise, it's a little bit more in depth. So it's like maybe 5 minutes, 7 minutes long. You can download it for free at the website. It's called Bingo Your Career Mindset. It is a self-reflection meditation guide, which my website is www.groundedenergy111.com. You can download it there, or if you follow me on Instagram, which is the main social media platform that I use right now, you can find it there through my link tree. And my handle is grounded_energy111. And then also you can join me every month for a free workshop called the Be a Boss Workshop, where we come together and kind of deeper dive together as a community into what you maybe uncovered during that self-reflective exercise. And I host that one a month. And as I'm coming out of maternity leave, the next one is going to be in June, June 28th. And it's a one day. I do it twice in the day. So 10 in the morning Eastern time and 3 p.m. Eastern time. Again, you can also find that on the website and through the link tree on my Instagram bio. But those are 2 fun ways to connect. They're free. You can connect with me, connect with other women who are going through similar experiences.
I love that. And if you're watching this and it's well past that date, just check out her website and you'll be able to find the next one coming to you. And, it's free. It's a gift. Don't be selfish. Don't take all the gifts for yourself. Share them with other people that you know. We love it when you give the gift of sharing, because you just don't know whose life you could touch or who really needed that free workshop coming up. And that can make a difference in someone else's life. And all you got to do is hit the share button. How easy is that?
Absolutely.
All right. So now we're going to move on to the other reason I started this show is, it's lovely to take some time to share with the world a little bit about me, a little bit about you, and bring on guests and do all the things. But I love carving out a moment of pause to share some awareness about causes that my guests care about. So share with us for a few minutes a little bit about a cause that you care about.
Yeah. So something that is really important to me, as I mentioned earlier, my mother's side of the family is Indigenous, and we're Tuscarora on that side of the family. What I grew up with was keeping it very hush-hush within the family for various reasons, and those in the Indigenous community can probably understand why. And I think it's important to share about the different cultures that are here, still here within the country. And I grew up in Western New York, so I grew up with the Iroquois Confederacy, and my family's Tuscarora. They're technically part of the Five Nations, but we were originated in North Carolina area into the southernmost part of Virginia. And during times of change, keeping it very political here, non-political here, some of the tribe moved north to join the Iroquois Confederacy. So I just would like to share about the Indigenous Values Initiative, which is about the Five Nations, which is Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca. And then, of course, Tuscaroras in there, where they teach about the cultures and the Five Nations and the history around there and the celebrations that they have. How they may look at different holidays that we look at as a nation, specifically Thanksgiving. There's a lot of misinformation out there around that. Plus, also, it's important to note for me too, because my family being Tuscarora on that side, there is connections down here in the Virginia area, because we have Powhatan Nation and Pocahontas, which that was her nickname. Her real name was, I hope I say this right, Matsoaka. Her mother was Tuscarora. So, there's a lot of connections within that culture that we don't talk about. Right. How the tribes work together, how it was a bigger community than we learn about. And, just sharing culture and history is really important to me, and understanding what's here. And learning from it, not to create pain, not to create discontent, but to just learn from each other. I think that's really important as a society and a community.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's beautiful. And I thank you for bringing that one. That's obviously a cause I have not heard about. And so, sharing awareness is a real thing. And maybe it's something no one else heard about. And maybe they're connected to those tribes as well and would love to learn more about that and be exposed to that. And I know also, don't quote me, I can't make promises, but I've done research in the past and run across lots of different grants and support for all different heritage and backgrounds, and women owned, of course, too. But make sure as a business owner you're keeping those kinds of things in mind, because those are wonderful just resources and benefits of who we are and our history, so that we can move forward and be prosperous in the business that we've chosen now. So really good stuff. So the next piece I'm even more excited about, because I'm a giant bookworm and I am building the ultimate book list. So I would love for you to share with us. Now, I know you're an author. We'll talk about your book in a minute, but share with us a book that either inspired your life personally or helped you grow your business. Is there a book that you could share with us?
Yes, I feel like I say this on all the time on repeat, but the biggest, the book that had the biggest impact was Lois Hay's You Can Heal Your Life, because I found that when I was making that first transition, leaving my dance career, going into
Mm-hmm.
corporate America, going back to school and trying to pick up the pieces of who I was and getting grounded within myself again. And I
Mm-hmm.
read that book cover to cover. I did all of her exercises. I started putting that into practice, you know, learning to say affirmations to shift my mindset out of that negative headspace, because I was in a very bad negative headspace. I was very dark. My energy just looked depleted. I know my husband will look at old pictures of me from back in the day and he's like, there's no energy in your eyes. You just look soulless and dead. And I'm like, for the longest time, I never saw it until, I at first bristled at that thought when he said that to me, but I started to look at those images and I was like, yeah, he was right. Like there is no connection. I'm disconnected. And this helped pick up the pieces and do the affirmations and do the manifestation and the journaling and taking a good hard look at myself, which was not easy. And it helped me make that step into traditional therapy. Um, Traditional talk therapy, and then I was able to move into more holistic therapy
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to just learn how to move the energy out instead of talking about it on repeat. I just was like, I just want to let it go. And that's when I was introduced to Reiki and using massage therapy and cupping and tapping, um, which leads me into another book, which was a Gabby Bernstein book. And it was The Universe Has Your Back. And that's really the book that I read cover to cover when I took that first step into my business. And what I wanted to do is just like learning to trust, like learning to trust the universe, learning to trust, like if you connect with God or whatever you connect with, spirit, ancestors. And and I bought her card deck that goes along with that book. So those are the two that really kicked off my transition. Now I get more into the financial stuff.
Yeah, I know.
um,
Right? I like that too.
yeah, I read more of the financial stuff because I realized like my background has a lot of finances in it, like working for a bank as a paralegal and being a trusted state administration paralegal. I handled a lot of finances and accountings, and I found it fascinating. So another book, I'm sorry, I know you asked for one, but I'm giving
No, I'm
three.
I'm a book hoarder, so bring on the books.
Awesome. I reached out to a friend of mine actually the end of last year, and I was like, I'm looking for a more like holistic approach to finances that's
Mm-hmm.
like just true, honest, like doesn't have this really corporate sterile vibe to it. And she said, you're gonna love this book, and it's I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And I kind of rolled my eyes at the title at first. I was like, really? She goes, trust me, read it. And it's by I hope I'm saying his name right, Ramit Sethi or Sethi. Um, and he has this approach in the beginning where he says, like, I genuinely read all my emails. If you connect with what I'm saying, even if you agree or disagree, you can email me. And I was like, okay, I'm sold, because I had that same concept with
Yeah.
my business. Like, if anything you read that I've been featured in or listened to on podcasts, um, connect with me. Like, I have a virtual open door policy, whether
Mm-hmm.
it resonates with you or not. Like, share with me something that you walked away with from anything you've read that I've done. But he does take a more like holistic, down to earth approach to money. Like he even says, a lot of us are told, I'm an older millennial, and Gen Zers and everything are told like, oh, you're buying too many avocados. This is just an example you hear a lot. So give up the avocados and the lattes that you're buying. He's like, forget the avocado and the latte bit. Like that's not going to break the bank. Let's really break it down and look at what's going on. So I love that. And it's called I Will Teach You to Be Rich.
I love that. There's two books out there, and I need to track them down again because I don't have their names in them, but they are about using like whole life insurance policies as your own personal bank.
Yeah.
And that book makes me think of that. And I need to, it's on my checklist to get my hands on those names of those books and authors again, because I'm at a stage where I want to read those, because we've been doing some fun stuff where my husband and I are starting with one of our adult children an additional business, and so that's an exciting thing to be happening, and looking at that. So I love that. All right, so now the star of the show, the author of the day, the one we really want to hear about. Tell us all about your book and how you decided to even write one, and why should we pick it up and buy it, and where can we get it, and all that jazz.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is called, I'm sorry, I just had baby brain moment.
You do know the name of your own book, right?
What's that?
You do know the name of your own book, right?
I do. I just don't know why all of a sudden it blinked out of me as I was going to say it. You know, it's one of those things where like baby brain, it's right there and then it just disappears. But it's Divinity Speaks, Women Who Tune In and Trust Divine Inspiration. It's a multi-author book that I did with 24 other authors. And it's about tapping into your own intuition at various levels. So many of the writers, we are a range of ages and backgrounds spiritually. So some are very religious, some like are me, where we're spiritual, we look to the universe, and how we've made transitions in dark places in our lives. So dark night of the soul type things. One of the authors talks about, and I always think about her, she had a kind of like a freak accident and suffered a brain injury and had to relearn a lot of things in her life. And she's very religious, and she knew she wanted to have more kids, but told she couldn't have more kids. And like, how do you come back from that? Like a brain injury to traumatic brain injury to like now living your life again, back on track, so to speak. And I talk about that, my moment of transitioning through recognizing that I had to walk away from dance and pursue, you know, what was the next step, which for me was being a paralegal. I wanted to try my hand at that. And it's an amazing book. You can find it on Amazon. If you go to my website under the media publications section, you can click on the link there. But if you just search Divinity Speaks, it should pop up on Amazon, and we hit international bestseller the first day. Yeah, it was very exciting. And
sorry. It's live. I just sneezed live for everyone. Sorry about that.
And all the proceeds actually go to sorry, I have a terrible time saying this. Ilmu Girls, which is a nonprofit organization in some of the smaller village areas around Kenya, where girls are actually still sold off as children brides and are multiple wives. And this school actually is a 2-year school teaching them how to sew so that they can be seen as a benefit to their husbands, to their family, by bringing in an income for them. And it's a very empowering nonprofit. When I've listened to some of their early students who are still connected to the school and mentoring and helping other girls going through the same thing, and how like the one girl, I can just remember that her story, she actually put her foot down, and she is her husband's only wife. And her family started to see her as a benefit because she was bringing an income in. She stood up to her mother-in-law, who was trying to pressure her son to get another wife, by saying, you know, she wasn't attending to the family needs as needed, but she had the confidence to step in and say, no, I am attending to everything. I'm bringing in an income. We're going to break this tradition in this household, which is so empowering. And that's so hard to do when that's what everybody is doing around you. So proceeds all go to that nonprofit. Find it on Amazon. It's a very empowering, inspirational book. 25 authors. You will connect with somebody. We range from being in our early 30s, late 20s to 60s. So there is an author in there for you to connect with.
I love that. That is beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all these wonderful things with us. And if you're watching, I want to thank you again. Many of you have been following us for 6 years now. You share, you like, you comment, you interact with us. And I'm just so grateful to have you. Now, if you happen to be an industry expert and you can help grow someone's business or improve someone's life, then you should be on our show. What are you waiting for? Reach out to us. We'd love to feature you as a profound professional. But here's the best news of all. You could be someone's hero and mine, and you could email introduce us to someone you know that's an industry expert that would be perfect for our show. We would always love to have you. Now, as always, before we let her off the hook and before we say goodbye, we're going to ask for one final thought, a piece of information or inspiration to leave everyone with today.
Yeah. So my thing is take every day in the present moment as it is, day by day, go with the flow of the energy. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't fret about yesterday. Just live in the present and everything will unfold as it's supposed to.
I love that. And yesterday in my journal, which happens to be right here in front of me, I wrote down from something I read, do not be defeated by yesterday. I love that. And then I also wrote, help me enjoy this moment, make it, and help me make it mine. And then I do like to envision the joy of tomorrow and, you know, my goals. So I'm a goal reacher, but I do love the concept of enjoying the moment. Well, you know who I am, everybody. It's Jessica Koch, your host of Profound Professional. So this has been another great show, and I'm going to leave you with the words I leave you every time with. I'm going to tell you and share with you and ask you to be kind to yourself and be kind to each other. Bye, everybody.
Take care.
And we have stopped streaming. Yay, us.
Yay.
I think we did good. What do you think?
Yeah. Sorry, baby brain moment. Always happens.
No, I mean, it's live. That's what it is. You just have to roll with it.
Yeah.
I sneezed. I mean, you know, I did one of this with my nose, and I hate rubbing my face whenever I'm live streaming, but I was trying to keep the sneeze from coming earlier, and it worked, but then it came later. So that's what it is. But it takes usually about a week or two. I think we have to catch up on some too, because I did a big event where there was like 12 episodes in a row. So
oh, wow.
I know my team is plugging them out. But we'll send you an email where we give you the link where we've posted. I mean, you can see it right on LinkedIn now if you went to my profile.
Okay.
It's going to convert, and I'll cut off that beginning where we were like, okay, are we live?
Yeah.
I do get rid of that right away, but then eventually it gets added an intro and an outro. The article comes, so we'll send you a link to the article and to all the places it's posted. But we'll also give you a link to a Google Share folder where we put the raw MP4 version of the video, so that if you wanted to put it on your website, or you could post it any other places, or hack it up or edit it or whatever you want to do with it. I don't care.
Okay.
So that's all those things, and hopefully you had a good enough experience that you'll consider introducing us to others, and
yeah, definitely
we can get them out here on the show. Sometimes it's one-on-one, and sometimes we have as many as 3 or 4 guests in one show session, because I have a spot for panels, and you know there's the $43 charge. So I just like to be very transparent and honest. So if you're sharing this with others, making sure that you're kind of giving them a heads up. I don't want them to feel surprised or shocked or like bait and switch has happened. Oh, what are you talking about? You're going to feature me, and oh, now you're going to charge me now. Well, believe me, that doesn't even take the edge off of what
I know.
Our team to produce, promote. It's funny, I was on a podcast event yesterday, and this sales guy was like, yeah, I'll be on your podcast. And I sent him all the details, and I say it every time up front, you know. And then he emails back, never mind, I don't pay to be interviewed. I'm like, I was like, okay, well, you know, I wish you well. See you later. You know, because seriously, we're running business here. You know, it's not
and the fee is actually not. It's a very small fee
for like the technology and the monthly streaming tools. And now I've added Apple, and we're getting ready to do all the audio threads and pull them. And I mean, we're on to several paid business platforms where I get more exposure because I pay monthly, and some of those are like $300 a month. And you know, and we put all these shows up on those, and you're getting exposure without having to pay for that platform. So I mean, seriously. Anyway, you just smile and walk on, because sometimes we're just not meant to be with people. So
exactly.
Do you often still get in touch with people who have passed on, or do they reach out to you, or was just when you were a child?
Um, I learned to, when I was a teenager, it was really intense. I'm a clairvoyant, so I connect through dreams. So a lot of times I will get downloads from like my ancestors in my family. I mean, I can remember having a dream with my grandmother after she passed, sitting
Mhm.
in her house, and I still remember it like it was physically happening. Because sometimes when you wake up from a dream, it's like I can remember certain things, but not everything. I remember everything about this dream.
Mhm.
And then after my grandfather passed, I did connect with both of them. But it's usually my family because my aunt, on the other hand, was never taught to put up barriers and set boundaries. So she has a really hard time traveling because she will actually see through people when something's going to happen to them, like they're going to die.
Mhm.
And that's very hard to process. Like, what do you do with that information? Go up to a complete stranger and be like, hey, I know you don't know me. You're about to die. Doesn't usually go over well. Um, and like she could tell, like there were just things
Would
that
you
happened
really
to her.
want to know? I don't know that I would want to know.
No, I'd be like, let me just go in bliss. So she has a hard time traveling. It's too much information, too much downloading. She will see a lot of spirits and the dead. And
Mm.
so because I grew up with like kind of watching her, I was like, okay, I need to learn to set boundaries around that. So I don't connect with other people's,
Mm.
so to speak, like I don't see them and I don't get clear like communications. But when I do Reiki with somebody one on one, I'll definitely feel into energy and specific like people will come through.
I dream
Um,
about my grandparents that passed on all the time. And I've actually felt one of my best friends who passed on. She was my best friend for like 17 years. And I feel her energy with me often. So,
yeah,
but I definitely dream about my grandmothers, especially.
and they'll send certain things to you, like
Oh,
send.
my one grandmother sent us a hummingbird, like hummingbirds were her thing. And my husband and I are sitting on the front deck on the stairs, and it was literally this close to our faces. We stopped breathing. We just sat next to each
Yeah.
other and just watched this hummingbird in front of us. It was so wild.
Hmm.
But I'm sure ladybugs and hummingbirds were one grandmother's thing. So yeah,
Yeah,
crazy.
my grandfather has been sending change. There's change all over the place in the house. Like every time I turn around, there's pennies, there's quarters, and it's kind of funny because my husband will just take the change and pop it in his pocket. So I'm just like, well, he just didn't empty his pockets, but then I'll randomly, like when I have that thought, then my grandfather throws a random penny somewhere, and I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, thanks, Gramps.
That is funny. Yeah. So yeah, I miss them a lot. So I was just curious.
Yeah, I will connect one on one if I'm working with you, like either in the coaching aspect or through Reiki, as long as the person is open. If they're closed off, then I respect that. Like I don't go
Right.
digging.
Yeah.
But out in public, I make sure not to tap into it because it's just too much information. And sometimes big crowds, I have to leave after a certain point because I start vibrating and can sometimes feel sick.
Mm. I was living in Germany for a while in Welschbilling, and when we first got there, we were in a hotel, in a very old hotel, and it was in this beautiful like all wooded area. And the back, if you walk down, led to like this little creek thing, and there was like this. They have a lot of all through Europe. There's a lot of like places of spiritual like it's almost like a little temple where they have like relics and things there
Hmm.
for prayer or something. And one of the nights that we were there, and they don't have closets a lot in Europe, there's not a lot of closets, a lot of wardrobes, that they actually
Hmm.
have pieces of furniture for that. And when I was sleeping one night there, I woke up and there was a woman floating at the end of my bed. And she wasn't mean or scary. She was just kind of there.
Uh-huh.
And then that was it.
Yeah.
And it was wild. But that same hotel, I also a spider went on my eye in the middle of the night while I was sleeping and bit me, and my whole eye swelled shut. It was wild.
That's
Um,
crazy.
I know, but just to think, I mean, even worse is to think there was a spider on my face,
Yeah, I
right?
think I would think that was worse.
But thank God I didn't have to deal with the spider. And God knows what kind, because, I'm in Germany, I'm in another country, and I
Right.
had to go to the doctors. I couldn't see out of it for weeks. It was really crazy. But
Oh my
anyway,
goodness.
that hotel, it was really a cool place, and all the other experiences were good except for the spider thing.
Right.
I could have done without that, but I don't know what. Sometimes I have to say I'm going to go when I see God and say, "What were you thinking, really? Really?
Right.
What was
What
the
was that
point of
about?
this?" Because I still don't get the point of that one.
Right.
What was that about, really? So anyway, it was lovely to interview you,
Yeah,
and
thank you so
I'm
much.
sorry I don't even remember that we're in EVN together. It feels like, I know
Well,
it's a small group, but it feels like there's a lot of people still.
I came as a guest. Kelly Geisler had invited me last minute in April, and we connected and we met in April for just like a connect and chat type thing, coffee chat. But it was right before I had the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I decided to sign up and be a member. So I'm in the
Oh,
networking group.
oh,
Um,
okay.
right now while I build things out. And then it's funny, I'm part of another networking platform, and they had a couple of clients that she was like, I'm trying to find virtual assistants. And I said, I know who you could work with.
I give
So
$100 referral fee. If you email introduce
yeah.
to me, I will pay you.
Okay. I did leave her a note. I said, this is your contact information. I said, I'd be happy to introduce you to Jessica. Especially if your clients are looking for this. And the one client, she had a price range, which is what I remember you telling me was right in your price range. So, um, I will definitely send her your way. And she's got a couple of clients. So,
Okay. So I might have to do like a 50-50 split
yeah.
between you guys or something, because she won't actually technically be signing up, but she'll be sending me people, and I'll need to give
Hmm.
her a referral fee too. And there's really only a kind of that wiggle room built
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
thing. So I'll figure out a way to send you both a little money, and then figure it out from there. So
Yeah. And we were a small group, and somebody had commented, I don't know anybody that does virtual assistants. And I said, I
mm,
do. If your clients need this, like, this is who you want to talk to, because I've been thinking about your services for myself as well. And one of my clients is interested at some point when she gets a little bit more settled. So I know
yeah,
I'm working with a part-time.
I have lots of good testimonials, and I work with Stephanie. And so Rachel is our part of our team. She's been with me for 6 years now, I think.
Nice.
So yeah, and she helps, and Irene, they're all part of my team. So we have, like
Awesome.
I said, we have about 70. We're going to probably grow before the end of the year to about 100. So
Awesome.
well, I will let you go,
Okay.
and I'll do the rest of the things. I always schedule a big block of time for this, because then also sometimes it becomes this, how can we collaborate? What else can we do together?
Yeah.
I don't know if you have an affiliate program or not, but if I think of anyone who's going through this, I don't really know anyone exactly doing what you're doing. So I'd be happy to
Yeah.
send your way. I mean, you don't have to have one. I just,
I don't have a traditional affiliate thing set up just because I'm so new. I'm kind of like, as a performer, when you talk
been
about,
like for 6 years. That's not new.
well, I've been doing this for 6 years, but this is the first time, like, I took a break for 2 years. And I was working with a health tech startup,
Hmm.
and I kind of shut the lights off on everything because everything
Oh.
was really pulling me in that direction. So I
Mhm.
shut the lights off, and then they went through a layoff the end of last year, and I was part of the layoff. And then it was like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't have turned the lights off on the business. So this year I've turned the lights back on, and I'm relaunching, rebuilding, and trying to rebuild that network and get back out there. But
Mhm.
the first iteration of my business, I was not, it just wasn't, and I didn't want to talk about this part because I don't want to deter people, but it was like, I kept hitting a brick wall. Like I wasn't making great connections. I wasn't a part of any network that, you know, was like what I'm with now, like with EBN and the smaller networking groups that I'm with. Um, but I also was stepping into the online space when people weren't stepping into the online space. They weren't ready for it until 2020 happened. And then everything transitioned, and that's when like my networking this time around has really exploded. So I'm really collaborating and connecting with more people than I did the first time. So I'm in that catch-22 at the moment where it's like, I'm right there. I just have to, you know, get those breaks, meet those clients, connect with that person or people, which is why I'm doing the workshop every month for the
I love
remainder of
that.
this
I
year.
think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. That's really good.
Yeah.
I was lucky because I started, I don't know, was it 2015 or something like that. And when I started, I was, I was a pioneer for, first of all, I was a pioneer also for work at home. Like even when I worked for other people, I worked from home because I was in sales. I got a salary and commission, but if I didn't perform, you know, what are you gonna do?
Right.
And that, I just made that a part of the thing. And they're like, well, that's how it works. And I'm like, well, it could work that way with me. So, and that's what I did. And then I also, in the early 2016 or so, was bringing people into Zoom and online, and I brought a whole company. I was sales and marketing consulting for a company that had about 8 locations, and I got them all I trained them all on Zoom. I physically went to, they paid for me to go to all the offices. They were like in 5 different states, and made sure they got cameras for all their computers. We ran their first test run, you know, have a meeting. They were like giddy children. It was so hysterical. And, because all the management, that nothing was on the same page. None of the sales training, none of the onboarding, none of the new hire stuff, nothing, you know, was on the same page. And I'm like, well, you guys have to talk to each other, first of all, if we're going to get everything on the same page. And they couldn't do that because they were so far away. And, you know, it's just, it was crazy. And so when the pandemic did happen, though, what happened was that CEO of that company reached back out to me and said, you are a godsend, because we have been doing this for so long before it even happened. We didn't have to scramble or panic. We could focus on all the other things we had to do differently in the business and not figure out communication. And they were so grateful that I'd gotten them there. But yeah, I was, and I've even been doing the podcasts for 6 years now. I mean, that was before everyone had one, right? You know?
Yeah.
And so I've tend to pioneer things before the rest of the world catches up, and just keep pushing through. So I'm kind of lucky in that in respect that I was able to do that.
I love that. I really do. Yeah. Because I kept honing in on the online space when people were telling me not to. And I was like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm supposed to do this. And that's when I learned all the tools and everything on my own, and then had to, life said, okay, well, I think you need to take a break because you're going to burn yourself out. You're doing all the things that you used to do in corporate. You need to find space to enjoy what it is that you're doing. And this opportunity presented itself, and I took it. And it was really only part-time to begin with. And then it went full-time, and I became a manager, and I was career mentoring my team, and other
Like
coaches.
Good learning. Yeah. Good learning experience.
Yeah. To get me ready to go back out and do what I love to do.
Yeah.
So
good.
yeah.
I'm the same way. The other thing I listened to really early on, I think I was only 3 months into owning the business, and I only had 2 or 3 clients, but I right away hired my first 3 virtual assistants right out the gate, because I knew I just didn't want to do all those things.
Yeah.
I knew all the things you need to do for sales because I teach it, but I didn't want to do any of those things.
Right.
Because there's all this follow-up and tracking and putting in your
Yeah.
CRM system and reaching out on LinkedIn, and you got to do this and that and that. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to do any of those things. I wanted to play Yahtzee with my 11-year-old. Well, she was like much younger at the time, and I wanted to go walk on the boardwalk on a Wednesday night and have dinner and not have to be strapped to this because I had gone to a big networking event and now I had to do all the follow-up. So I just hired people to do all that stuff. And it was only 3 or 4 years ago that people kept saying, how do you get everything? How do you do everything? And I'm like, oh, I don't do everything. I don't want to do everything.
Exactly. I think like that as well.
Well, that's how the VA system became born. I was like, you know, like, well, how do you do that? And I kept explaining it. And I realized they just wanted me to do it for them. But I didn't know how to do that. And that's what I said to people. I said, so I'm launching this new thing. I have no idea. I've never done this before. We're all going to wear a parachute and, fly the plane, build the plane as we fly, and we'll see if it works out. You game? I mean, that's literally how I sold the VA program at the very beginning, because I didn't know what I was doing. But now we have some processes and we're organized, and I've got this great team, and now we know what we're doing and we got our shit together. But
yeah, your services are the next thing that I'm looking at tapping into, because like even myself just trying to sit down and do the emails for the events, because I do all my PR stuff.
Yeah.
And then like I have to get it out in front of my audience, on my email list, out on the platform, do the reels. And I'm like,
all things. We do all those things, reels and editing and social media content development and newsletters and emailing and landing pages and free gift bills and getting you booked on shows and speaking engagements. And we do all those things.
Yeah, you're my next step. That's for sure. Yeah.
Okay, well, like I said, we have the referral program, and that helps a lot of people take the edge off, because if you're a customer, then you get that $100 credit towards your monthly invoice. That really takes the edge off. And I have somebody who started with me almost at the very, very beginning. She's been with me so long, and like clockwork, I get 3 to 5 email introductions every month from her. She's like made it part of her work.
Yeah.
And then she ends up paying, I mean, because they have to actually sign and close. And sometimes it takes a couple months, because people think about it or work, want to do it or whatever. Right. But as soon as they do, so on average, she has between 1 and 2 because she does that, between 1 and 2 credits of $100 every month I've sent her since she started, because she sends customers. So why wouldn't I do that? And she loves it. She's getting VA work for almost nothing, right? So it's a great deal for everybody involved. So
yeah, and as I work with more entrepreneurs, like I want to be able to refer them to people like you. Like I said, my one client, she's an entrepreneur. She's going in the next step, adding something onto her business. And I said, look, she was like, how do people do this on social media and everything? I was like, they have a team. I said, don't be fooled. It looks like they're doing it themselves, but in 9 times out of 10, they are not. And I said, I know somebody who has a great business of doing this. And if you're interested, when you're ready, like I will introduce you.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's made my life what I want it to be. So I still sew, I paint, I kayak. I really resonated with your one cause that talked about the sewing, because I sew. I've sewn since I was very young. My mother was sewed, and her mother was the town seamstress in
that's awesome
that they lived in. And so sewing is near and my great grandmother was a seamstress, and so sewing is a thing in our family. So
I love that.
All right, well, I could talk forever, but I really can't.
Okay.
I enjoyed it very, very much, and so thank
Same.
you for sharing your time with me, and
you're so welcome,
and for sharing your story and your journey with me. And hopefully we get some eyes out there, or you at least have a really great marketing tool to push out to people, and
exactly.
Never know what can happen from it. So
absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Be well, and we'll talk soon. Hopefully we'll stay in touch.